Welcome to another episode of What to Say and How to Say It. I am sitting here with my favorite licensed professional counselor, Kyle Hargrove, and today we're going to talk about the phrase, I don't know. Now, that's a powerful phrase and it's a weak phrase. So we're going to learn more about that, and we're going to learn more about it in context of your relationships. So if you are in a situation where you have been to all the therapists, you've paid all the counselors, you've been to the workshops, you've read the books, and you're still in conflict and you want to get out, this is going to be beneficial for you. Maybe you've got a partner that says, I don't know. Maybe you say, I don't know, and you've got some good reasons for it, or maybe some not so good reasons, right? Well, today we're going to dig into this topic because it can be in the way of effective relationship. So, Kyle, when you hear the phrase, I don't know, what alarms go off for you, or how do you respond to that?
What alarms go off? All of them, whatever they are, internal, external, blaring, tiny little sounds. You're exactly right. And I really like the way that you couch to that I don't know is extremely powerful and says a lot, while at the same time it's extraordinarily weak and says very little at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it so powerful, I think, is that it can run the gamut. And you know, having been a therapist for what is, goodness, now my 31st year,
Ooh.
and having spent a little time in the classroom as well with kids in public school setting, it's a phrase that I've come across quite a few times. And I know that there's a difference in the therapy room and in the school classroom, but I taught sixth graders, 11 and 12-year-olds, and it's okay. I'm going to be fine. I wasn't
That is
fine.
kind of a war zone over there with that age group.
Word. I just got to tell you, I think the last semester of my teaching career, which lasted all of 3 years, my objective on the board each day was don't be on the news tonight. And probably a lot of that was my difficulty and my frustration with things like, I don't know. But that being said, my classroom and my therapy room are IDK free zones. In other words, this is going to be free of I don't know. Mm-hmm. You may say it, but it's not going to get it left there.
Right.
And it's my job to recognize when somebody is checking out with an I don't know. I think probably in the classroom, it was more of a lazy thing. It was more of kids not wanting to think, not wanting to put forth the effort that it took to actually know, or at least even share an opinion or a guess. But when I don't know is your default answer, your go-to, your MO, there's there's a reason behind it, and it's not a good one. Regardless of the circumstances, whatever reason that your primary response to anything asked of you or said to you is I don't know or IDK, there's a problem.
So you're in a conversation with your spouse and you're trying to dig into what happened so that you can prevent it from happening again. And they respond with, I don't know. And you try 28 ways of asking that question, and still you get, well, maybe not 28 because you're going to give up before then, but you tried a few times. It's like, I don't know. So what is behind that from where you sit when you see people doing this?
Well, let me give you another example, a similar one, but just from the therapist point of view, from the outsider looking in, the objective person. When I'm working with a couple and one of the people says, this is what I see, this is how I feel, and this is what I need. And so then you turn to the other one and say, what are some possible solutions to these needs and these feelings and these things, that you can be a part of when it comes to your spouse? I don't know. Okay. What do you see is going to have to happen to get the marriage off high center, to get it moving in a positive direction? I don't know. Well, what do you see for the future of this relationship? I really don't know. So there's there's a building frustration occurring in probably everybody involved. The therapist, and from my standpoint, I can assure you, I'm becoming frustrated at that point because I see an unwilling participant.
Mhm.
I mean, for some reason, I say participant. That may be pushing it a little bit.
Ha, yeah. They've
They're
been
there
drugged
for
there.
some reason, but they're not participating in a positive way at all.
Yeah.
So it's the message, it's the phrase that says nothing but says a whole lot at the same time.
Mhm.
So I, just kind of in my own brief research without researching, but just kind of thinking back on my own experiences as a facilitator of counseling, um, I come up with a few things that I believe are the hallmarks, the primary reasons that somebody is going to be the I don't know person uh, in a relationship. So the first one I think already identified with the 11 and 12-year-olds. Mentally, they're lazy.
Mm.
The person that's their default go-to answer. I don't know. They don't want to engage, and that's because they don't want to do the work. And regardless of what kind of work it is, they don't want to do it. They're not interested. They're not planning on becoming interested.
Mhm.
And so, although I'm crediting that one primarily to the kids that I taught, I think sometimes it's also the case with adults in therapy,
Mhm.
people in relationships. They're lazy. They don't want to put the work to be intentional into this relationship because it's just not what they signed up for.
Mhm.
They've already checked all the boxes. They did all the things to get here. They don't want to do the work it takes to stay here,
Right.
if that makes any sense at all.
Well, for a relationship to, I mean, if you're green, you grow. If you're ripe, you rot. If you think you've arrived, you're on the way down the hill and gonna, have problems because relationships take nurturing. They're like plants. They need watering and sunlight and nutrition and all of that. They don't survive on their own without effort.
Yeah. Well, and the second part of I don't know is that most of the time it's a lie. Okay, lies, lies, all lies. I'm not talking about a little white lie, and I'm not talking about an omission of facts, or
Mhm.
no, I'm talking about a lie.
Hmm.
It's a blatant deception. Because
So
most of the time when someone says I don't know, they really do know.
what's under that? Like, what are the motivations for saying I don't know when you do know?
Two of them, I think, are the primary motivations. And one is, and please pardon me for my candor here. Uh, what they're saying without saying is, I'm just far too much of a coward to tell you what I think.
Mm.
I'm not brave enough. I don't have the courage in this
Mhm.
setting, whatever it is, to say what I think about the situation, about you, about whatever it is that we're trying to break open. They don't want to deal with what's going to happen when they do.
Mhm. I can remember being in elementary school, a sixth grader. I guess that's middle school now, but dates me, but whatever. And I remember actively choosing to not answer teacher questions because I was one of these kids that knew the answer, and I would always raise my hand. And then around sixth grade, the kids started making fun of me. Oh no,
Mhm.
Miss Know It All, So I stopped raising my hand, but the teacher knew that I knew the answer, so I'd be their go-to, right? So they'd call on me, and I started saying I don't know because I was so tired of being picked on. So yeah, fear.
Yeah. Miss
Yeah.
Know It All, teacher's pet, curve buster. I
Yeah,
mean, you probably had all the names.
I did. And the whole coward thing, absolutely. Because if I had known who I was, like what 12-year-old does, but if I had, I wouldn't have cared. I would have been brave. It wouldn't have been bravery. It would just have happened, right?
Yeah.
But I was a coward. And I see what you're saying. People can be in a relationship and be like, yeah, if I tell you the truth, like that's gonna cause a problem. And I don't want to deal with that. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and so that's an important one. The you know, I'm too afraid to tell you what I think. And then the third one, let me borrow a line from an old movie. You can't handle the truth.
Mm,
That's my emotional support banana there. I just had to have a prop, but anyway, well, I never leave home without it.
okay.
Not a problem getting it onto flights. I mean, a few strange looks, yes, but but that third answer, I'm not too lazy. It's not that I don't want to deal with the fallout, but you don't want to know what I think, because if I tell you what I think, it's gonna destroy you.
Hmm.
You know, it's gonna ruin your day. It's gonna cause you to think something of me that I don't want you to think of me. It's going to cause you to see that I'm no longer invested in this. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But for some reason, that the IDK person is the one that says, I'd rather just things continue to float along as they are than for the truth to be out there. Whether
So
it's
they're
truth that I'm
they're
afraid to
avoiding.
say or truth that I don't think you can deal with.
So they're also avoiding like that. That seems like laziness, but different. Because that then involves work. But it seems like there's also compassion involved. I don't want to hurt your feelings, or codependency, maybe.
Mhm.
Something not healthy there. Because good relationships, man, are built on being able to tell people the truth.
Honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just a matter of honesty and about things we did or didn't do, our actions or our behaviors, or
Hmm.
it's honesty about what we think and how we feel.
Yeah.
And that, have we had a podcast yet that didn't use the word vulnerability?
I
Uh,
don't think so.
yeah, but here it is again.
Hmm.
Okay. This is where it, to exhibit the type of vulnerability we're talking about, shooting for here requires courage,
Yeah.
and it requires the ability to push through the fear or the expectation of something negative coming out of it, and say it needs to happen. The truth needs to be known. What are we perpetuating if we're unwilling to tell the truth because the outcome is not going to be positive?
Hmm. Well, and part of me wonders. I mean, in coaching, sometimes a client will say, "I don't know," when I ask them a question. But I always follow that up with, "Okay, so fair enough. But what if you did? Like, let's assume for a minute you did know. Like, what would that look like?" It's a little frustrating of an experience for the client for a moment, but they always come up with something. And that's a little different than in a relationship. But
Yeah.
I was thinking, what would I do if that was something that I was met with from my spouse consistently? And I think I would probably ask the second question. I think I'd probably say, so you said you don't know. I'm guessing there's a reason you don't know. What would that be?
Hmm.
And I'd want to know. I would want them to say to me, I don't I don't think anything I have to say here is going to get heard or respected. I don't think you can handle this. I think you're too sensitive. Whatever it is, I want to know what that is.
And maybe that has historical background.
Exactly.
Maybe it's you don't take my complaints or my
Hmm.
my thoughts or my feelings seriously in the past, so why
Yeah,
should I bother now?
exactly. And people get to that space.
Yeah.
But right, yeah. But if this is one of the things that I think is a core value of greater impact, and that is that we believe God. That was with our leadership team this morning, and we have this beautiful meeting every week, and it's just awesome. And one of our members said, I'm XYZ age, and they're in their 70s, and I am so glad that I can say that I feel approved by God, that I don't feel like I have to prove myself to him, earn his favor, that I feel like God loves me for who I am, the mess that I am, and that I don't have to earn something. I can receive grace. Like, I get that. And I can't believe I lived so many years before getting that. And I was excited for her. And I was just like, yes, that's awesome. And then I had this other thought, this is why we do what we do, because we never know when, right? We never know when somebody is going to be open. One of the things we teach people is that, you always start off a conversation assuming your partner is wise. And if they start to prove foolish or evil, then you adjust. But we always start from that vantage point. And when you're recreating trust in a relationship, you got to give people a chance. You got to periodically stick your toe back in the water. Hard to do.
It is. It is. In a previous life, I did a lot of work with corporations, with businesses and corps, and there are a couple of rules that I learned. And number one, if you want to know what's going on in the company, talk to the receptionist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
And number two, when it comes to information about what's going on in the company, if you don't fill in all the gaps, people will fill them in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I don't know provides the opportunity for. Okay. I don't know squelches the flow of information.
Yeah.
Shuts it off like an oil well being capped. Okay. Nothing else is coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a need in this relationship, knowing that there's an issue and a problem, or maybe several problems. There's a need to know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a need to have information so that I know what to do next, how to respond, what your needs are, 100 different things. And if you say, I don't know, if I'm like most people, it's when I get too thinky. And I don't know about you. Actually, I do. Because you're a human being person. And when human being people get too thinky, they awfulize.
Yeah.
Okay. They take the scenario and the possibilities to negative limits.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think about the positive things that it could be about. It never,
Right.
It's always awfulizing. I think the industry word is catastrophizing.
Yeah.
Okay. We overthink, therefore we catastrophize. With me, the simpler person, we get too thinky and we awfulize. Okay. So it's so true. And it's so prevalent that when you don't provide the necessary information, people will fill in the blanks in their own mind, and then they will act on it.
Yeah, I hate that, because that becomes a filter, and it's not even real, right?
And what if the thing that you're presuming in your mind that you're going to act on isn't accurate? Then there's just more damage coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been in a situation where there was information that you needed, and you say, you tell somebody, I just need to know, good, bad, or indifferent. I just need a direction here. I'm floating out in the sea and there's no wind. What do you call this? Doldrums?
Something like that. Yeah. Doldrums.
And I need a direction. I need a puff of wind to put me going into some direction here, because sitting still is death. Not knowing is emotional death.
Yeah.
And knowing that somebody else does know and they're unwilling to share, it begins starting that resentment process, because that's not fair.
Yeah. No, that's pretty accurate. And so I want to change what I said earlier. because, I'm in relationships with, 99.9% of my relationships are pretty transparent. People give me, feedback that, a lot of people might consider painful. I just have very open relationships with most of the people I'm in. They can say things to me that are, a lot of people might think be hard or something. But if you, that isn't where you're at and you want to create that, so you ask a question, you get an I don't know, that might be a cue for us to say, hey, I know that sometimes in the past I've been kind of reactive. I want to understand today. I promise I'm just going to listen. I'm not even going to do anything responsive. I just want to hear what you have and make sure I understand it. Can we try that? I mean, I don't blame you for not wanting to share it with me, but can we try this? And that would require some humbleness on your part.
And a signed contract.
Yeah, the other person might want that. Like, I ain't going there. I've seen you before. Like, no.
Yeah.
But if you do that enough and you respect their no, okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, well, I hope we can get to that because I want to show up differently, and I know I haven't been honorable in the past. I want to change that. That's a possibility.
It's a genuine effort.
Yeah.
And that's what has to happen for this ball to start rolling. Somebody has to put together a genuine effort.
Yeah. Yes.
And then, hopefully it's received positively.
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, they're trying. Maybe I should put forth some effort myself.
One of the things that I encourage couples to do, and I do couples coaching differently than a lot of people do, but I work with the individuals a lot. And then we have a very purpose-driven, agenda-driven couples meeting. And I don't allow bad behavior, period. I shut things down if people don't act respectfully. And
you and Dr. Phil. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not as scary as he can be. I don't think. I don't know. My clients might say differently, but at the end of it, everybody thanks me, so I guess it's all right. But what I was going to say is that when you have the genuine effort, it needs to be received. And so one of the things, and maybe you'll call this meddling, but when I work with one person and I coach them on a thing to do, I might send a little thing to the other person and say, hey, there may be a new behavior coming your way. I'm going to challenge you to be open to it if it happens. And I'm not guaranteeing anything. And I don't get specific or whatever. But one of the things that I do challenge both men and women to do is when their spouse is emotional and having big feelings, if there hasn't been a history of domestic violence, to walk over to that person and put a hand on their shoulder, say, hey, can I give you a hug? In the middle of them yelling, raising their voice, like who need what? That makes no sense, right? But people, it's like a train wreck in their brain, and they can't think for a second, and then all that's in front of them is love, and then there's physical touch, and then there's a warm, hey, can we work through this differently? I love you. I see you're upset. How about we try this again? And I've seen that diffuse so many things when people are willing to try it. And this is props to men. I ask both men and women to do this, but it's the men that'll do it.
Yes.
I love that. And I get that the women are scared, right? I get that. But even when they're not, they don't. Often they don't, but the men will. And I love that.
Yeah. It also has to do with the body of work prior to that instance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the man who is emotional at that moment, but coming into the discussion, it's the woman who was incensed.
Mm-hmm.
So getting up and giving that person that she's really angry with a hug and some physical affection at that moment is not on the top of her agenda.
Well, and that's why we tell people don't do conversation if you're emotionally charged. Like go do, we have these steps we teach people, go walk through those feelings with the Lord so that you can be an adult and not a temper tantrum throwing 3-year-old in a conversation,
Yeah.
you know.
Isn't it interesting? I was having that conversation today with a client, about her own 26-year-old expressions of anger, and so I said, you remember the 2-year-old that bangs his head on the floor and pounds the floor with his hands and feet because he didn't get the cookie? She says, yeah. And I say, you didn't get the cookie either? It just looks different. It's the same thing.
Yeah. For the
I do what I
20
wanted, and
something
I'm
and the
trying to
mom.
change the direction or the narrative. So this is how I do it.
Yep.
It's a temper tantrum for an adult. It's the
Yep.
same thing, just a little bit different behaviors.
Yes. I hate that.
We're such complex beings.
Oh man, like doing the same stuff we did like when we were 2. Come on.
I love it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty doggone ugly and on an adult. And on top of that, it is not what we're called to do. We're called to walk in the Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Self-control. Oh, wait, is self-control on the list? Did I say that? Yeah, it is.
Did
Like,
you say that?
yeah, it means you got to wait for your cookie, man. Defer gratification. Be a grown-up. Somebody, please. I get it though. Me too sometimes, man. That's it. Yeah. So what's one thought you want to leave with our people today? Some advice around the, I don't know, the IDK group, as you call them, or the IDK.
I would leave you guys with the Billy Joel encouragement, honesty. Such a lonely word. But yeah, honesty, transparency. If you're in a relationship that's supposed to be the one, if you can't be honest and transparent in that one, you're going to have a real hard time.
Yeah.
And have a real hard time, unlearning things that don't work for us, and then learning how to implement and exhibit skills that are going to be positive. If someone doesn't have the confidence that sharing your thoughts is something that you do honestly, they can't give themselves completely to the process. So being honest, I think, is really the kicker here. It's the key to getting past the I don't know, and getting past the all the reasons or excuses, whichever you want to call it, whichever it is, that people won't converse about sometimes difficult issues.
Yeah, that's spot on. And it reminds me of what you said earlier. I don't know is a lie. A lot of times it is a lie. Sometimes we don't know.
Yeah.
But then it's, hey, I don't know. Let me get back to you about that. There's a different motivation there. I don't know when you do is a lie. So stop lying, start being honest, and your relationships will get better as a result. So thanks for chatting around this topic today. This is a good one. And if you guys want more information around how to have healthy relationships, you can pop over to our website, greaterimpact.org, and you can grab our free PDF download, 5 tools to stop walking on eggshells. Thanks so much for being here today.